What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. And in this particular episode, we are playing part two of my interview with Marc O'Dwyer. Now, this is part of the new Rewind series, which I've introduced, which is basically me playing back a lot of the videos of previously aired podcasts, but that only went out in audio format. So this is your opportunity to watch some of those great interviews I did with some really interesting guests, but you never saw the video. It never went out there. Now, in particular, Marc, the reason I chose Marc is because the sales process is something he knows an awful lot about. He's a good friend of mine, but he really is an expert in selling. And he's been awarded, best salesman in Ireland and all sorts of awards like that over the years. And I thought he would be a great guy to bring on to give some advice in this area. Once again, I think I've mentioned this in the previous video. It doesn't matter whether or not you're not in the sales, side of your business or whatever. The actual skill of selling is critical life skill. If you want to get a pay rise, if you want to go and raise money for a business, any of that stuff, if you want to go and get a mortgage, you have to be able to sell yourself and sell what it is that you're proposing to the other party that you're talking to. And so this is a really critical skill. And I've done all the intros before. If you want to watch part one, if you're stumbling into this video and you don't know about part one, I'm going to link it up above right now. And so without further ado, let us go to my conversation with Marc O'Dwyer. Tell us, Marc, just in terms of the principles of sales. I mean, for somebody who isn't, there's often, you said at the beginning, your parents when you told them you wanted to be a salesperson, they were immediately like, no. I mean, because there's often that kind of view of salespeople, but like sales is a very important skill to have. And I mean, if you want to do anything, you have to be able to sell. You have to be able to either sell yourself or sell your product or sell the proposal or the investment that you're trying to raise money on. So give us, in your view, just what are the key components that you need to master to actually be a good salesperson?
Okay, so the first one is body language, Gavin. So you need to come in as if you're confident, whether you're not. That's irrespective. So one way of dealing with that is to stand yourself in your mirror in your bathroom and look yourself in the eye and just give yourself and develop a very confident persona from the very start. Body language when you're going in. Don't go in with your arms folded. I know you can see me now, but your listeners can't. Like if you're going in there, you're already negative. Don't have your hands crossed in front of you. Have your hands open. Nice strong handshake. That's huge. One of these wet limped handshake is a disaster where you just literally offer your fingers.
The wet sponge,
that, yeah. It's like, just don't. Like whether you're confident or not, you need to pretend you're confident. So there's lots of people who are shy who come on podcasts or do whatever else and they're out of their comfort zone. So the first thing you need to be is out of your comfort zone and show your confidence. The second thing is you need to show the features and sell the benefits. Okay, so people want to see whether that's yourself, what a feature of yourself, whether it's your career to date and you're trying to get a job, or whether it's a product or service you're selling. That's the features. But the guy who's buying or the girl who's buying is only interested in the benefits to them. So that's key. So show the features, sell the benefits. They're key. Listen. You have 2 ears. God gave you 2 ears to listen, twice as much as speak. Now, I know I speak an awful lot, but believe in a different scenario, Gavin, I know I haven't drawn a breath here in this, but I'm just trying to get out as much information for your listeners as possible. But it's key to listen. And why do you need to listen? You need to listen as to why the customer needs whatever you are selling them or whatever your competitor is selling them. And if you can find out one key thing that they say that your software or your product or your service has over and above your competitor, you zone in on that. But you'll only find that out if you listen. If you overtalk somebody, they're just going to get annoyed with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So confidence, show the feature, sell the benefits, and listen. They're three key things that I would think, no matter whether you're, as you say, you're trying to get funding for a business, a building project you're trying to do, and you're selling yourself to the bank. You just need to be really confident. You need to show the features and sell the benefits. And the benefits in that case are what the bank are going to get on the back of backing you, and the figures that are involved in terms of what return on investment they'll be getting, and just give them that bit of confidence in your presentation.
And listening is the big one, all right, because what I always actually say to my kind of people that are listening to me is that you have to understand the motivation of the person on the other side. And if you're listening, you can actually figure that out quickly enough. Whereas if you go in, say, this is the deal, this is how it has to be, you haven't listened to what it is they're looking for. You might be trying to sell a lemon to someone who's trying to buy an apple. Do you know what I mean?
Correct.
And that's where the motivation is so important.
Yeah, 100%. Or as I said, if you listen and you hear something that your software has that your competitor doesn't have, you will only find that out if you are listening.
Mark, going back to the business, you've made it into a successful business now. And I mean, at what stage did you decide? There was obviously a moments when you sort of thought this is all going to work out. I've secured a good customer, or I've just achieved something that's kind of like a line in the sand, and I'm getting to this point where I feel confident now I can scale the business a bit more. Like, when were those moments that you kind of found, yeah, I'm actually ready now to kind of jump to the next level?
Well, I have to roll back as to what the motivation of the software of the business was in the first place, Gavin. And that was when the realization after 2 years that we weren't doing well. And the reason we weren't doing well is we didn't keep proper accounting books and records. It's a very simple thing to do. We were keeping it on Word and Excel, which most people think is fine, but it's not. Because when the early days, when you get 4 or 5 customers, it's grand. If they're part paying you, it's easy to understand who owes you what, whatever. But when you get 50 customers or 100 customers and you don't know who owes you what you owe to the revenue, what you owe to your suppliers, how much money you have in the bank, it gets very unwieldy. And that was kind of a tipping point in my career, Gavin, where I realized there had to be a simpler way out there to have an accounting package. And hence that's where Big Red Book came along, where it's a really simple an easy to use product that's based on the old red ledgers people used to use, which your listeners have probably never heard of, but it was an old red book with, it looked like a spreadsheet inside essentially. So it's columns and rows where you wrote down the invoice number, the date, the person, the amount, et cetera, et cetera. So that was like the tipping point. So then you go off and I've got the Big Red Book, and then we're at a crossroads in the business where I went to an Enterprise Ireland seminar about moving your product or service to the cloud. And there was 20 key points on that slide, and we ticked 80% of them. And it was that point that I knew that we needed to go to the cloud. So that was 2009. So your listeners now will have probably grown up with the cloud, and they won't understand that was really, really, really early adopters. So the first thing we have to do is then, what platform do we go on? Do we go on Amazon AWS? Do we go on Force.com, the Salesforce platform, or what? So we chose to go on the Microsoft platform, and we went down that route. And Microsoft were so happy that I think it was a 19-year-old company at the time, were betting their future on their cloud platform, that they supported it hugely. And we were a worldwide Microsoft case study for them. And it proved to be the best thing for us, because subsequently Microsoft have become the highest ranked security cloud platform in Europe. So it's the most secure platform you can have your data on, and all my customers' accounts are sitting on that. And it's in the Dublin data centre here in Ireland, so it's even saved here in Ireland. So that was another tipping point. So then I had to go and transition from a traditional business where I sold desktop software to Gavin Gallagher to selling Gavin Gallagher a cloud-based product, which was software as a service. So instead of getting €1,000 off Gavin, I was now getting €25 a month. So I had a €975 hole in my cash flow, but I still had 20 employees. So how do you bridge that? So you had to come up with unique ways of bringing in more cash, and then trying to educate the accountants at the time that this was the way to go. So it was a huge learning thing, both for my staff, both for me, both for my company, and both for our customers. But then fast forward, we're now 9 years in the cloud, and the recurring income is phenomenal. It's going up all the time. We have a 94% retention rate. So you might say, well, why don't you have 100%? Well, there's 3 reasons why we don't retain those 6%. 1, they outgrow our product, which is understandable. 2, unfortunately in Ireland, as you know, Gavin, in the industry you're in, broadband isn't 100% coverage. So there's pockets in Ireland that don't have good broadband. So they can't use Big Red Cloud. They can't use any cloud product in those areas. So that's another reason. And they go back to our desktop product. And the third reason is they go out of business. And that's just a fact of life. Businesses don't always last. So but we're scaling all the time as a result of that. And so when you get to an inflection point where you realize that the business is consistently going up, that's the point, in answer to the question you asked, as to when you decide to scale. So we're looking at potentially going to Malta and Cyprus. Why? Essentially because of Brexit, and essentially because Cyprus and Malta have the same accounting rules as the UK and Ireland, and they're English speaking. And they're smaller markets and easier to get traction in there. So they're markets we're looking at the moment. We're obviously looking at the UK. Probably we'll do that in a similar format the way I did when we used to be the biggest channel partner for SAP, third largest software in the world. And here I grew that business to be the biggest partner in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we did that by acquiring businesses in the UK. So on the side, I'm also looking at acquiring payroll companies in the UK. Why payroll companies? Because payroll and accounts are brother and sister.
Yeah.
And if I can get a UK-based cloud payroll company and marry in Bigger Cloud, I can sell Bigger Cloud to their customers, and then I can bring the cloud payroll back to Ireland and sell it to my customers here in Ireland.
Interesting. Yeah, you've got a great strategy kind of figured out there
yeah.
at this stage. I wanted to get into your sporting. You and I, as I mentioned, I actually put you down as the guy that introduced me to sport and all that kind of stuff, because I wasn't particularly sporting at the time. And fast forward 20 years, and you and I would both be kind of hanging around similar circles that are, into triathlon and all this kind of stuff. How important is the sports side of it to you in terms of just your mindset and stuff like that?
Oh, it's massively important. I mean, I played rugby from the age of 7 on, Gavin, and I think it's hugely important for parents that might be listening to your podcast, or even younger members, to get involved in a team sport. It's a huge network. You don't realize at the time, but the amount of people and friends I've made over the years from playing rugby is incredible. And you bump into them in business and in different sports clubs that you meet over the years. So sport has been always an integral part of my life. And then when I set up business, in order to be on top of your game, I find if I am at my fittest, I'm thinking more clearly. I am able to make decisions more clearly, and I am full of far more energy. Sometimes it drives the staff mad because I have so much energy. But if you own the business yourself, you really need to keep up your energy levels, and then that results in a better, healthier life and more longevity. And you're not out sick. I have staff and they're sick on a regular basis. I think I've been sick. I was sick once. I got shingles there about 2 or 3 years ago. And that was the first time in 20-something years that I'd been out of the business. So it's huge. But the other thing, Gavin, is when I'm training and I'm on the bike, I come up with some of my best marketing ideas. Because you're clear, you don't have any noise, white noise outside, or people ask questions, or your door in your office being opened, and you're out in the the countryside of Wicklow, and you're just thinking. Or if I go on holidays, it drives the staff mad because I always come back with all these mad ideas. But it's because you have time to think, and your business is your baby, and you're always trying to think of how you can better it. And if your mind is cleaned and cleared up of all the noise, then you have more time to come up with the more unique ideas, I guess.
And so I know you've done 6 Ironman events now at this stage, and the amount of training that you have to do in order to kind of achieve that is pretty significant. But you've basically built the business to actually give you that freedom now at this stage. How many staff do you have today? Yeah,
so we have 25 staff, and you're right, I have built the business to be giving that freedom. For many, many years, I used to go off to Mallorca for 5 to 6 weeks during the summer, which was fantastic, and left the business run itself. The training, you say, I don't know if people will know what an Ironman is, but it's a 3.8K swim, 180 kilometer cycle, and a full marathon, a 42.2 kilometer run, all back to back. So you have 17 hours to do it, and it's quite the challenge. So in order to do that, you have to put in a significant amount of training, and that takes upwards of 20 hours a week, as well as running a business and being very involved in my family as well, and making sure you get out to see their sports games or any of their functions. So you do have to manage it, and like you project manage a lot of your building work, Gavin, it's all about just having the timings perfect. So if I can get up early, I do get up early, and I'm at the pool in UCD for 6 a.m. I could have an hour or 2 hours done before I'm actually in work before 9. And it's also building, I'm lucky in terms of the office is 6 minutes from the house. So I don't have the big commute time that a lot of people will have. Yeah. So that then gives me the commute time that some people would have to put into my sport and my training. Then when the girls were younger, I would wait till I went to bed, and then I would do my training after that. So it's a matter of just fitting the training in around your life and making sure that one doesn't affect the other. That's important.
Doesn't take over your life, yeah.
Yeah, if you can keep it balanced. I mean, sometimes it does get out of control, and you need to, pull yourself back a little bit. But don't get me wrong, the Ironman is pretty intense. It's pretty insane, and it does take an awful lot of training, a lot of mental strength. But the euphoria at the end of it is worth it.
Yeah, I hope to experience it next August.
Yeah,
12
well,
months
you
from
were
now.
lucky that it got cancelled. So
Yeah,
please God,
it got cancelled 2 years in a row, which is
yeah,
the most annoying thing. Yeah.
yeah. But look, just Gavin, when you're going into that, remember that you can't control the weather. I've had two in 40-degree heat, which were unbelievable. I've had
40-degree heat.
Yeah, I've
Jeez,
had
wow.
one was in Austria. It was in a glacier lake that you would think that it would definitely have a wetsuit. And swimming is not my best sport of the three. And it was a non-wetsuit swim. The water got over 24.5 degrees. It was that hot. So two in 40 degrees, and then I'd one in thunderstorms where they had people helicoptered off the mountain. And then one of the ones in 40-degree heat, there was 40% of the 3,000 starters didn't finish.
40%. My God,
Yep.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a tough race, all right. Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to the point where I go and do mine. Mark, just in terms of some advice that you would give to people who are kind of starting out their career, and the career path that you've taken so far. I mean, is there anything that you would have done different now, or are there kind of places that you should kind of learn the ropes before you sort of start your own business? You started your own business quite early, if I recall.
It was 27.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
the bit of time that you put into,
I got fed up making business owners a lot of money because I was pretty good at sales, and I said, look, if I can do that for them, I can do it for myself. But I said, look, it isn't what it seems to be at the start. I thought exactly that. I'm going to make all this money myself. But when I went from a business where you had the support around you, in terms of the administration, the purchasing manager, the delivery guys, where you had a structure there and you had 8 hours a day to sell, and that's all you had to do. And everybody else then took over the order and deliveries after that. To go into your own business where you had 6 hours to do all the deliveries and administration and only 2 hours to sell, it was a rude awakening, really rude awakening. So that you need to understand that you're not going to have the same amount of time, because there's only a finite amount of hours every day, as you know.
Yeah. And
there's only a finite amount of time in business hours. So 9 to 5:30 is generally what a business is open, unless you're obviously selling on the internet. And so you have to understand that. You also have to understand that as I said earlier, the key skills required to run a business aren't necessarily skills that you'll have yourself. So you need to buy in people for that. One thing I would have changed, Gavin, I would have been better funded. I only put £2,500 at the time, it was Irish pounds at the time, and my partner put £2,500. So when we set the business up with £5,000, that was not enough money. So yeah. I would really stress on any of your listeners out there to do a proper budget, do a proper business plan. Don't be naive and underestimate our budget, the costs. Costs are going to spiral out of control no matter how good you are at keeping on top of them. So I would make sure that you're well funded before you do it, and give yourself a decent amount of time. And that's not just yourself, that's your wife or your husband or your partner, whoever it is. If you're going into business on your own, you're going to say, well, I'm going to give this X amount of time. Now, don't say it's 6 months. Don't say it's 12 months, because that's not going to work. You need to give it 3 years. So you need to have a runway of cash flow to keep you going for 3 years, to meet any rainy days or any unexpected costs. And that's probably one of the key things that I'd change. That I would, and I'd be more, I guess another thing I'd be more reliant on, and I hope this isn't going to come across sexist, I would be more reliant on the female that would be in the business to help select and interview people. I think ladies have far more intuition than men. And I'm very gullible, and I take people at face value. And sometimes I've interviewed people and say, oh yeah, they're great, and they haven't worked out at all. Like I took on a sales guy in the UK, Gavin. I don't know if I've ever told you this. And after 6 months, he had sold nothing. Now he came with an unbelievable pedigree, selling lots and lots in his previous company, but whatever it was, he didn't do anything. I went over to fire him. He kind of sensed I was coming over to do that. He didn't give me the keys to the office back. He didn't give me the laptop back. And he hid the BMW 318 IS that I had given him. And I ended up having to get a private investigator to find the car. It took him 6 weeks, and we found it parked in a forest somewhere in the back end of the UK.
And what was his whole deal? Like, I mean, did he just bullshit you into or was he actually a good salesperson previously?
Yeah. Okay. Look, to give the guy a little bit of fairness, I guess, I don't know what you
Credit.
call it, credit. He came from a company that had lots of support, big company, was generating the leads for him, and was doing all the ancillary work around a salesperson to us, which was a new startup in the UK, essentially, where he had to generate his own leads, close his own leads, etc., etc. And he just couldn't step up to the market.
Yeah. I've seen that happen before. All right.
Yeah. So I think, depending on if you've got a female in the business, depending on their intuition in the interview process, I think is a really, that's helped me now, because we've got a COO in the business here, and she basically does all the interviews, and it's always a team, and we tag team on the questions, and it works out much better. And we're very lucky in that people have stayed with us for years and years and years. We don't have a huge turnover in staff, and that's because we have got that down pat now at this stage, Gavin, and we can understand and read personalities and understand that they'll stay with us.
Yeah. That's great. Well, Marc, I'm conscious of the time. I was just, if people wanted to reach out and connect with you and investigate your product, where's the best place to connect with you or find you?
Yeah, bigredcloud.com. So we're a simple and easy to use accounts and payroll software, as I said, across vertical. So any type of business, no matter how large your turnover is, once you have simple accounting requirements, we embrace all the latest technology, Gavin, as well. So we have AI bringing in automated purchase invoices into the system. We have open banking with machine learning. So we cut down an awful lot of the day-to-day manual, stress that people have just inputting manual stuff. It cuts down errors, cuts down times, and saves a significant amount of money. So bigredcloud.com. I'm Marc at bigredcloud.com is my email. Happy to answer any questions any of your listeners might have. Very accessible. It's Marc O'Dwyer on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well. But
that's Marc with a C.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah. My parents' jokes, not mine, but Marc with a C. Thank you, Gavin.
All right, Marc, it's been a great pleasure chatting with you, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks, Gavin.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Marc O'Dwyer. I hope you enjoyed the first of my Rewind series, and I hope you got to watch part 1 of the video. If you have enjoyed this particular video, then I'm convinced that you're going to enjoy this playlist that I'm going to link over here on my right. And in that playlist, I'm putting all of the different interviews that I've done in the past year. And so go have a look at those, and I will see you in the next video.